Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. Why you should use a long COVID Social Security Disability Residual Functional Capacity Form in your short and long-term disability claim. Now look, in addition to being a nationwide ERISA short and long-term disability attorney, I'm also a Social Security disability attorney. In fact, I was one of the first attorneys in Florida to try a long COVID case in front of a Social Security judge. And I did that before Social Security came out with policy and position statements and instructions to physicians about what should be in medical records. I won that case by addressing the long COVID symptoms and symptoms of other functional impairments based on the body systems involved. And the judge agreed with my approach. One of the things I'm strongly going to suggest that you do after you finish listening to this episode is to go onto the Social Security website and download the Social Security Administration's policy and position statements and instructions to physicians as to what should be in a patient's medical records, and share that with your physician. That will help them document your medical records in a way that will help you win not only your Social Security disability claim, but your ERISA short and long-term disability benefits. Now, we attorneys, Social Security attorneys, have developed a long COVID residual functional capacity form. Social Security won't tell your doctor about it, and not all doctors are aware of this form. Now, note, we modify this form to meet our clients' particular needs and medical records. So this generic form may not be the end all or be all in your particular case, but in my mind, it's a key part of the evidence that has to be developed. In addition to this COVID residual functional capacity form, we review our clients' medical records. And if our client has new medical conditions like POTS, we will have the client go get their physicians, the specialty physicians, to complete a POTS residual functional capacity form. If you've got cardiological complications, we download the cardiological residual functional capacity form, and we want that filled out. So we want as many of these applicable residual functional capacity forms filled out to maximize not only your chances of getting your Social Security benefits, but your short and long-term disability benefits. Because remember, we've talked about how the APS forms don't ask the right questions on purpose. So if you're ready, let's get out and go over the COVID residual functional capacity form. Now, I'm not going to go over all of it, but I am going to talk about parts of it specifically. Now, one of the questions they ask is for you, the doctor, to answer the following questions regarding your impairments. And they want to know how long the physician has treated you and the frequency of the contact. That's important because the Social Security Administration wants to understand the nature and length of the relationship that the doctor has with you, which will impact their ability to render meaningful opinions. They want to know what's the diagnosis and the prognosis. They also want a list of symptoms, and there's a checklist, and that is taken from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and CDC information. This part of the questionnaire asks the doctor to check the symptoms that have been pronounced after the infection and have persisted more than 6 months. From my perspective, I think things that are important are symptoms that are chronic and symptoms that relapse and remit. The question of whether there's testing pertaining to the symptoms and treatment pertaining to the symptoms. So it's all kind of got to be tied together, if you will. So among the questions that are asked are, does the patient have issues with pulmonary issues, breathing, coughing? Do they have a fever? Do they have cardiovascular issues, palpitations? Do they have orthostatic intolerance, POTS? Weight loss, edema? Do they have diabetes or abnormal glucose serum? Do they have post-exertional malaise, both physically and cognitively? Do they have exercise intolerance? Are they easily fatigued? Do they have problems with insomnia, blood clots? They want to understand whether, from a gastroenterological standpoint, you've got rashes. Do you have problems with using the bathroom? In terms of diarrhea, urination? Do you have shortness of breath? Do you have poor short and long-term memory? Are you easily confused? Are you easily overwhelmed? Do you have brain fog? Do you have headaches? Now, if you indicate that you have headaches, I'm always going to want to set off, by the way, a migraine residual functional capacity form. Changes in taste or smell is not going to get us too far, quite frankly, but pain is important, and where that pain is important. If you've developed, for example, chronic fatigue syndrome, or you have uh, other issues of that nature, we also want the chronic fatigue syndrome RFC completed. I have cases where people who have pre-existing fibromyalgia have their fibromyalgia made worse because of COVID. So I'm going to say let's also use the fibromyalgia residual functional capacity form. If you are having problems with tingling and numbness, particularly of your hands or your lower extremities, I'm going to want to use a residual functional capacity form that will address those symptoms because they can impact your ability to engage in bilateral manual dexterity. Do you have sleep problems? Well, if that's true, we want to use the sleep disorder residual functional capacity form. How about tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on how you want to pronounce it? We have a residual functional capacity form for that. I'm going to save depression and anxiety for a little later in this presentation, but the doctor's going to ask questions about that. Now, question number 5 is if your patient has pain, characterize the nature, location, frequency, participating factors, and the severity of your pain. Now, that's important because, again, that can impact your ability to function. But if you've done the analysis the way I've suggested, aggravation of pre-existing, the post-COVID issues, and any new medical conditions, and you've done this kind of outline for your doctor, this will help your doctor characterize your pain, your frequency, your location, precipitating factors. Again, everybody wants to know what's the objective findings, and they also want to understand the treatment and the impact of treatment. Every disability insurance policy or plan requires that you get reasonable and appropriate treatment. So you want your doctor to address that. Now, if you've gone through multiple medication trials, you also want to be able to be documenting that for your physicians. You tried this, it didn't work, they switched you to that, or you had these side effects. Let's get into the question of whether your impairments can be expected to last and how long they're expected to last. I think that's important, certainly from Social Security standpoint, but the frequency and nature and duration of these symptoms are important, I think, because of functionality issues. If you have a condition that's going to wax or wane or is going to interfere with your ability to function so that you can't attend work, that's important. Let's talk about psychiatric questions. We have to be really careful here. Why? Many disability policies have mental nervous policy limitations, and there is what I call the regular flavored one and the Monty Python flavored one. The regular one, if you will, the vanilla one, is a disability that is caused by mental nervous conditions is limited to just 2 years. But then there's the Monty Python one, which is the one that scares me the most. And that is a disability that is caused or contributed to, ever so thin, that Monty Python wafer thin mint, that can result in a limitation of benefits to just 2 years. So in my view, I understand why you have depression and anxiety, personality disorders, or post-traumatic stress disorder, but I really don't want the doctor to say that your disability is contributed to by those conditions because benefits can be limited to just 2 years. Now, one of the most important questions in my view is intention and concentration. That can be caused from physical issues or cognitive issues. What's important, of course, is how the issues interfere with your ability to do a simple task in an 8-hour workday. Would it interfere rarely, occasionally, frequently, constantly? The greater that response, the more likely it is you're not going to be able to maintain the pace and concentration required to meet the production requirements of an occupation. I will be quite frank with you. When we get to the any occupation stage of a case for long-term disability, and certainly for Social Security, the issue is whether you can engage in even sedentary work, a job sitting down all day, using your arms or your upper extremities, the bilateral manual dexterity issue, with enough concentration and pace to complete tasks in a timely manner and to do so without breaks that are greater than the normal breaks and absenteeism. I know I just rattled off a sort of a laundry list there, but ultimately the game is to prove that you can't even engage in a sedentary job. That's why question number 15 is really important. It's the functional limitations. Now, some doctors will say, I can't answer these questions. I don't know, because they either really don't want to get involved or they don't want to commit. And if that's the case, then it really is incumbent upon you to either find another doctor or to get a functional capacity evaluation to measure the kinds of things that are outlined. How far can you walk? How long can you sit? Do you have to change positions? Can you have to, alternate sitting, standing, or other positions? Do you have to take unscheduled breaks? Do you have to lie down at unpredictable intervals, like to take a nap because you're fatigued? How long do you have to take a nap? Do you need any assistive devices? Do your legs need to be elevated? And if we're talking about a sedentary job, how long do those legs have to be elevated? Do you use a cane? How much can you lift? How much or how long can you look down side to side? That's particularly important, and I think in postural orthostatic type issues. And again, that is really crucial, particularly as it relates to sedentary work, because you're turning side to side, looking up and down. Bilateral manual dexterity is really crucial, I think. Every occupation, I think, requires a degree of bilateral manual dexterity. And so if you can start eliminating that because of problems with your hands, problems with stiffness or pain that impact your ability to use your hands, that's really great. I like the good days, bad days questions. You may have a good day, and on a good day, you do something that needs to be done, and you pay for days. It might be physically with pain. It might be increased symptoms of a cardiological nature. It might be increased problems with cognition. Again, having broken those kinds of things out for your doctor, it should be relatively easy for the doctor to fill out. And I tell my clients, use this laundry list as you are writing out your symptoms and functionality as a mental checklist. Do you in fact have this problem? Yes or no? What is it? How often do you have it? How does it impact your ability to function? That sounds like a heck of a lot of work, and it is. You most likely are going to need the assistance of a family member or friend, but I assure you it is worth taking the time to do this. I make my clients do this, and in particular, I make my Social Security disability clients do this because this information will make all the difference in getting the benefits, both for Social Security and for short and long-term disability benefits. Got it? That was a mouthful, wasn't it? So let's take a quick